Save us, have mercy. I know I used up my 3 favors. No more slipping on semen for you, my guy. Congratulations. No, seriously, I don't want to hear any more stories about ASAP Rocky is finally free from Swedish prison. Literally didn't need to make a video about this, but you knew I was gonna. So just to keep in mind, this does not mean that ASAP Rocky has been found innocent. It just means that he's free. He's no longer detained while waiting for his verdict. For those who don't know, including Trump, who offered to pay for Rocky's bail, in Sweden doesn't have bail. They don't have a bail system, so you can be held there for an unspecified amount of time until your verdict actually happens. In my opinion, I think this is good news for Rocky's situation, because I don't believe that if they were going to find him guilty and give him severe jail time, that they would release him, them previously saying that he might be a flight risk. I don't think they let him go just for them to reel him back in and say, bitch, you not done. But in their defense, they 100% could. I just think it's unlikely given the freedom that they've given him at this point. I think it's more likely that they'll tack on some random fines. They'll tack on maybe some probation, maybe some restrictions on his access to Sweden. Maybe he can only go there to perform shows, and that's it. I don't know. I'm guessing they'll find out. But this is good news for Rocky, because most rational people knew that he probably wasn't going to get that much jail time anyway. As I said in my initial approach to this topic, Sweden, from the research that I've done, tends to be a lot more passive with their laws. So what does this mean in totality? There's a lot of things that I think that this means. Number one, ASAP Rocky learns that you can't just go anywhere and do whatever the fuck you want. I think it probably humbled him a bit. I think it probably put things in perspective a little bit more. I think he probably is aware that he needs to know everything about a country before going there, and if he doesn't decide to put that work in and learn about those countries, just go from place to place interacting with fucking no one. This whole situation, in my opinion, has shed a lot of light on my issues with the US law and Swedish law. Now, the point of Sweden having no bail, I love, because it prevents people from getting into this classism thing that America has right now. If you don't know, in America, there's a bailing system, and in that bailing system, you are allowed to bail yourself out. If you want your bond back, you need to appear on the proper court date. If you don't appear on that proper court date, you don't get your bond at all. Why is this a bad thing? Well, one, it encouraged the release of people that may have actually done the thing, but since they have the money and the revenue to get themselves out and flee from the court, then they don't really have to face the consequences the same way someone who didn't have their estate would. So the US, in my opinion, the bond system favors people that have a lot of money versus people that don't have much at all. Because if you get into a situation and you have zero monies and your bank account isn't that large, then you're probably going to be faced with a decision to sit in prison until your verdict. And then in that sense, your social standing on the outside is going to rapidly deteriorate, as you're going to lose probably your job, you're probably going to lose your finances, you're probably going to lose your car, your house. It don't take long to miss a few payments and then everything goes to shit. The US bail system, in my opinion, is what's contributed a lot to the mass incarceration of minorities. You take a bunch of people that aren't as well off, that don't have as many advantages, and then you hike up the price of their bail. If they do something or fuck up in any way, they come out, they no longer have a job, they no longer have resources, they may no longer have a place to stay. Then what's the option for them then? Another job won't hire them at that point because what's on their record may not be wiped away. And that's if they're proven guilty. Some people could be proven innocent and you've lost all that shit just because you couldn't pay your bail. This is why it favors people that make a lot more money versus people who don't. Money talks. So if you don't have as much money, you're not likely to be in a good position when you get out, which has always been my issue with the US and their whole innocent until proven guilty thing. Because if I'm innocent until proven guilty, number one, why can you detain me? Number two, why can you put me in cuffs and throw me in a prison in a cell and I haven't been proven guilty of anything? Why do I have to pay a bond, which for the average person is much higher than it should reasonably be? How you can say all that is me being perceived as innocent until proven guilty is beyond me and complete hypocrisy. So Sweden, in my opinion, has given me a perspective on what I think America should adopt to prevent this classism narrative all over the US. As you can see, Donald Trump offered to pay for Rocky, who again, in my opinion, is involved or included in that very small percentage of people that have a lot of standing in the US, who are famous, who have a lot of celebrity, that have a lot of money. And Donald Trump, of course, offers to pay for another person that has a lot of revenue. This just adds more to why America's bailing system, in my opinion, is just so flawed. Trump thought money could talk, but in Sweden, they said, fuck that shit. My issue with Sweden, on the other hand, is how you can have no bail system system, but at the same time have an unspecified amount of time that a person has to remain in your prison until they are tried, until they get a verdict. It should either be one or the other, and the price of said bond should be dictated based upon the crime. Now, I know that's an even worse idea because it encourages certain people that have a lot of money in certain areas to do whatever they want with specific crimes, knowing that they're going to get out anyway because the crime they committed is only worth about this much money. This is why I'm not a politician. This is why I don't make the laws. I say all this to say that America was so surprised when A$AP Rocky was gone through, in my opinion, a somewhat decent system. He wasn't allowed freedom just because he had money, and I think that's what America has been used to, money talking for everything. But in this case, all his resources were useless. His attachment to Kanye, whose attachment to Trump, proved itself to be useless. And that is what's needed to sap or take power away from people that, in my opinion, get to do whatever the fuck they want. Now, I'm not really applying that to Rocky because in this situation, I'm still on his side. If people were following me and I told them to stop and they kept fucking doing it in the US, I wouldn't really see that much of an issue putting hands on them as long as I didn't do too much. But I mean, for people like R. Kelly, when you give people that amount of freedom, despite them being a major suspect in whatever crime you think they committed, despite that going against your own situation where you say innocent until proven guilty, the complete hypocrisy in that, you allow them the freedom to escape any kind of responsibility for the crime that you're accusing them of. And Sweden didn't allow A$AP Rocky to do that. And the point of this video is nothing. What I've learned from this situation is people in the US didn't know shit about laws outside of the US because they were completely shocked when another country that had a slightly different view or perspective of disarming people that have a bunch of influence and a bunch of resources from using those resources to avoid convictions. Point is, I think both countries could learn from each other. Also, I think Sweden could really work on making their laws a little less black and white. I mean, the situation clearly didn't just drop out of nowhere. A$AP Rocky didn't just see these dudes and say, hey, let's get them. But Sweden, it's either one or the other. You can't have both, okay? You can't tell me that I can't bond myself out and then not give me a date as to when I can be released just by default. But hey, the man is free. We've all learned a little bit more. Maybe you haven't. If I was A$AP Rocky at this point, I would be extremely happy. I don't think the situation is going to get much worse for him, so good news for that. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you next time. I'm out. Bye.